Hi, so this is the second part of the lecture. This time we're going to talk about some factors affecting the Philippine education system. So these are our objective for the second part of the lecture. It is for you to recognize the different factors affecting the education system here in the Philippines. And the second objective is for you to know the different ways on how the Philippine government tried to solve these problems. Okay, so I hope you're going to listen more so that you can relate this information with some of the information that you have in Korea or your situation in Korea. So let's start with the first factor affecting the Philippine education system. Obviously, this is actually not something which is new. The economic situation, as you already know, is very important. What if the country's economy is low? What could probably happen? Obviously, the results are in relation to education system. First, lack of budget in education, and the second one obviously is unemployment. Okay, now if we actually have lack or this kind of problem here in the Philippines, of course, if we do not have money, okay, in relation again to education, if we don't have enough money or budget for education, the first problem, of course, is lack of teachers who are actually capable of handling students. As you already know, in one class, if I'm not mistaken, the perfect number of class students in one class is around 30 students. However, in the Philippines, since we do not have enough teachers or we do not have enough budget to hire or employ more teachers, one class or one teacher has to handle double of 30. So what does that mean? So one teacher has to handle around 50 to 70 students in one class. Okay. And another problem is that since we do not have enough budget, obviously it follows. We also do not have enough facilities and materials, most specifically in the public schools. So I remember when we had actually our GTU community service program. Together with the GTU students, we went to a certain public school and tried to teach there. We actually tried to borrow their textbook. Unfortunately, according to the teacher, it was already, if I'm not mistaken, it was around January. It was winter program. It was already January, and yet the public school didn't receive yet a textbook from our government. Why? You already know the reason why. Again, they don't have enough budget. So how does the school try to survive in order to teach the student? Well, the teachers try to be very resourceful. They try to print the textbook, they try to print the lesson plan, and try to research on their own on how they can teach the certain subject matter to the students. So when actually our GTU students went to the public school, we couldn't borrow any textbooks, so the advisor just gave us the unit plan, and based on that unit plan, we actually followed. And the GTU students, who are very much prepared, they were wise and hardworking enough to research and read about those subject matters that they have taught. So another problem, if we actually have lack of budget for education, obviously it also follows. We also do not have enough infrastructure. In relation to the first thing that I told you earlier, in one class there are around 30 to 60 or 40 to 70 students. Sometimes the students actually just study in a very narrow area, as you can see here in our next picture. Can you see this one? Because of classroom shortage and lack of teachers, look what happens. So it's kind of like a sardines which were actually put in one can. So you can see many students there in one classroom, right? Okay, they try to study and learn together as much as they can in a very narrow room. And you can see also another reason, you can see from this one, this is true. One time when we went to another public school together with the GT students during our community service program, they actually observed this one. So some students have to study in a very narrow classroom like this, and there are around 50 to 70 students in one class. However, even if the situation was like that, the GTU students that we had during the time were very happy to teach them and prepared very well for this number of students. Can you believe that? The good thing was they taught in a team. So the team teachers, around 4 GTU students, try to teach around 50 to 70 students in an hour. So this was actually the situation then while they were teaching. Okay. Another factor, of course, if you do not have, if we actually have an economic situation in a certain area, this is actually a big problem, not only in the Philippines, but also in other places worldwide. Unemployment. Okay. So why? So one of the reason is that there is no job opening in the field that the student graduated of. So for example, if they graduated as a nurse, unfortunately there are no enough hospitals who are actually employing nurses. Therefore, they try to work still and they try to look for another job. However, it's not that related to the job or the course that they have graduated of. Okay, or some they actually do not work at all because there is no opening in their own field. Next one, why are they unemployed? Another reason is because of their lack of professional eligibility. So some companies, of course, if you didn't finish a 4-year course program, they actually do not let you work. So what they need are actually teachers or professionals who finished the 4-year course. Okay. Another reason why there is an unemployment, I think Koreans can relate with this one, is because the starting salary is low. Okay, so if the starting salary is low, they tend not to work in that company. And then another reason or another a way on why they are unemployed is because the university or the college where they are working are actually not well known. So this is very common situation in Korea. If the university where you graduated is not very famous, there is a possibility that you cannot probably graduate in, or you cannot not graduate, but you cannot probably be what is that, employed in a certain place. So in your country, university is very important, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Now, due to COVID-19, okay, due to coronavirus, this problem is actually not only true in the Philippines, but is actually a very big problem which is observable worldwide. So, as you can see, the unemployment rate in the Philippines suddenly went up during this time, during this pandemic. Okay. And then another factor, okay, affecting the education system in the Philippines, of course, is the high cost of living. This one, again, is true not only in the Philippines, but also in other countries, I guess. So, high cost of living is increasing, but still, of course, Korea is still higher, but some Filipino families here in the Philippines, It's very difficult for them to pay for their utility bills or even to send their children in schools or at schools, which could actually, of course, affect their lives. So some children, even I observed that one with my own eyes. I asked some of the teachers on why some of the students are always absent. And you know what? The answer of the principal was, it is very common in the school that the students are absent. You know why? Because they help their fathers or their mothers to work in the market so that they can gain money to buy their food. So it's a very common, it's very sad, but it's quite a very common situation here in the Philippines. Okay. Another factor affecting the Philippine education system is, of course, uncontrolled population growth. So this actually causes problems on financing education, as you can see, the food production, job availability, and providing needs, of course, of the members of the family. So as of 2020, how many population do we have? We actually talked about that one in the former lecture. If you're going to look, we have around 110 million, okay, population here in the Philippines. So how does it affect? Of course, very much. We observe this one with our own eyes together with the other GTU students. The more siblings actually, or the more members of family, the more difficult actually it was or it is for the parents to send their children to school. Though in basic education it's possible. However, if they go to university, most actually, most of the people who are having problem with financial financial things to pay for their tuition fee, they usually do not go to university anymore. They stop until high school. As a result, okay, they just work for something which is only skilled work. Okay, and again, it results to, of course, as you know, if they don't have a work which is paying them high, their lifestyle or their living will still be the same. So it's a possibility, but we observe that one with our own eyes together with the GTU students. Okay. Another factor affecting the education system here in the Philippines is conflict. This one is actually not new to you, I guess. What happens if there is war? Okay. Of course, obviously, in some parts of the Philippines, more specifically, the second largest island in the Philippines is Mindanao. In some certain parts only, okay, not the whole Mindanao. If the parents, of course, cannot work because there is no work, they cannot work actually because of war, obviously there is no income. Okay, if there is no income, everything follows. Okay, they cannot send their children to school, they cannot give them food to eat, okay, so on and so forth. Another one is, of course, obviously, closed business. If the business is closed, there is, of course, no profit. And another thing, no school classes. Obviously, the result is no learning. Okay, so they have to close the schools because of the war going on. It actually happened a few years ago, which was the reason why some of the GTU staff and ACADS and professors actually did not let some of the students before to come here in the Philippines because of the conflict that we had before in Mindanao. So that actually affected the children in Mindanao, and most of them were even misplaced and were sent in other places to study. Okay. Next one, another factor is the epidemic or pandemic. This one, what we actually are experiencing this time. Okay. So this epidemic, actually, when we say epidemic, what does that mean? It is actually a disease that affects a large number of people. Okay. And a pandemic is an epidemic that spreads over multiple countries or continents. And that is actually what happened because of coronavirus. So since it was spread, it became a pandemic, worldwide. So you can see this is true worldwide. School is closed. Why? Because of this pandemic, right? So there are no students, and most of the students are studying online. I have told you earlier, our president made an announcement before that he will not allow children to go to school unless there is a vaccine. Therefore, as you can see from this picture, most of the students are studying through blended learning or only through modular. Okay. So having these factors that we have here in the Philippines in our education, affecting our education system, what were the solutions or what are the solutions being implemented by our country? There are actually some. The first one, we call this one as ALS, or Alternative Learning System. This one, as you can see, is actually a system that we have for out of school youth in the Philippines. Out of school youth, there are many reasons why they are out of school youth, either because of children abuse, because of family problem, because they were pregnant at an early age, okay, and other factors. So what they do is they actually have a separate classes for them, for these children or teens who actually had problem before. Next one, these ALS or ALS develop basic and functional literary skills. As you can see, even old people, whatever the age is, they can also study, okay, with this program. And with this program, they can already have a complete basic education. So that's actually one of the implemented solution. Another implemented solution is government money assistance program. So our government tried to focus on the citizens' health and children's education by means of giving them assistance program financially. In return, the members also who were helped by the government should help the community. So I actually was in this kind of an assistance program when I was in the university. So in exchange of this one, I actually helped also the community. So the government helped me and I also helped the community by means of teaching for free to the children. Okay, another one is another program is by means of working abroad. Okay, maybe I'm not sure if you have heard about this one, the overseas Filipino workers, or we call them as OFW. Economic betterment of the family. It is actually for the food, clothing, education, and business of their own children. Okay, and they spend money better for business and, of course, the economy. And do you know why? The more dollar, because these overseas Filipino workers work in other country, they actually send dollars here in the Philippines to their family. And of course, the more dollars that enter the country, the more that it can actually help the economic situation of that country. So these OFWs, we actually call them as heroes because indirectly they actually help our economic situation. Okay, another implemented solution is government and NGO scholarship. We actually have a plethora or a myriad of non-government organizations or government organizations who are actually giving scholarship, academic scholarships to students or children who can actually go to school without paying any of their fees as long as they will study hard. So we have some of this ones such as DepEd, as I have taught you earlier. This is the Department of Education, TESDA, and then CHED. We actually have many programs for some students who cannot pay for their tuition fee. As long as they study hard and they get high grades, these organization can actually pay for them. And then these ones are actually some private sectors such as McDonald's, SM, and Jollibee. These are just some. There are still many more who actually helps students to go to university. So how? Of course, they should study hard to maintain their grade and in order to get these kinds of scholarships. Okay. Another implemented solution is by means of livelihood program, which is created in order for some parents, some mothers, or some people who are very much interested in creating their small business jobs and to become entrepreneurs so that they can actually work and have their own finances. As we have learned, teach give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. So this is actually kind of like a philosophical thing that we follow so that these people can also learn and then survive on their own. Okay. Another way is free access to quality tertiary education. What is the goal of this program? It is to help students access to higher education, and it was actually implemented as of 2 years ago. And what is it for? It is to pay the miscellaneous fees of the tertiary education students, and it covers only, okay, public universities and colleges. So what does that mean? If you will go to this public or government owned universities or state universities and colleges, you will only pay a small amount of money since the miscellaneous are already paid by the government. Okay, so just to review what we have talked about, the following are the factors affecting the Philippine education. We have the low economy, high cost of living, the uncontrolled population growth, conflict, epidemic, or pandemic that we are experiencing these days. And just some of the implemented solutions that we have. The one that we just have discussed are ALS, Alternative Learning System. We also have the assistance program, working abroad. We also have scholarships, and we also have some livelihood programs and free tertiary education. So this one are just some of the factors affecting the Philippine education system. And I hope you have learned on how the government tries to solve the problems that we have here in the Philippines in connection or in relation to our education system. Thank you. That's the end of the second part of the lecture.